Hello everyone, I'm Amir Reza, and Ali asked me to talk about how it feels to live in Iran under the current, regime. And the first thing that comes to mind is the unbelievable suppression and, oppression, repression, all of that against the people. But I was thinking about the more political or let's say societal aspects of it. And I was like, I'm sure other people are going to mention it. So I'm going to look at it from a different venue. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean that this is the most important one, probably the least important one in the list of the things that are wrong with this place. But I just wanted to give it a different spin, look at it from a different place, because I'm sure other people are going to mention the things that are the most prominent and paramount. I am going to talk about the situation of internet connection in Iran, and not just the blocking and filtering and censorship, because that too is something that most probably other people are going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the part that has affected me the most, because I'm an avid gamer. And basically, one of the reasons that I wake up every morning, as childish as it may sound, is playing video games. Video games have been a very, let's say, big part of my life. They have been always with me since I was like 3 years old with my Sega Genesis. And they've always played a huge role in my life. And they've been my shelter and my, every time that I was coming back from school, I wanted to play video games. And back then, that wasn't much of a problem before the eighth generation of consoles, before internet started to have a huge impact in how we play video games. And I'm not talking necessarily about the online part of them. I'm talking about the fact that you now have to download big portions of the games through the internet. And they happen to be at least, let's say, 10 gigabytes, 20 gigabytes. These days, in the neighborhood of 80, 90, 100 gigabytes. Like right now, there's a new update for Modern Warfare 2 out that is 50 gigabytes. And while it may sound like nothing, or, nothing to worry about too, you probably can download it from anywhere between 2 minutes to, let's say, 15 minutes. But here with my connection, it's going to take, let's say, around like 12 hours, to download this. And just the amount of time that I have to spend on downloading a game is not the only problem. The problem is that even online services for downloading games have been interrupted heavily these days. I have to use different DNS settings. I have to use circumvention methods, like, let's say, I have to use VPNs and all other kinds of shit to play video games. And recently, they have been accusing the protesters of being gamers. They're like literally, I think, at least a part of them, the regime people, are thinking about the fact that they're just like trying to limit access to video games, because in their retarded minds, it's a kind of like it's inciting people into riots and protests. They don't look at it as if they are the problem, because they are. They're like, no, we are doing everything fine. It's the video games that are brainwashing the children into being violent against us. They consider it kind of a mental, like, psychops on their part. And I wouldn't say that it's 100% wrong. Of course, every piece of media has some sort of an agenda. And one could argue that there are aspects of not just video games, anything, movies and cartoons, everything, that does in some way undermine some local values or shit like that. But to think and to say that there's a planned or concentrated effort into trying to get a specific group of people or nationality into rising up against their government, just beyond ridiculous. Just like, it stretches credulity to the limits. And so yeah, that's it. Like, the thing that these days has affected me the most, and has been my problem for the past 7 years, that internet has played a bigger role in video games, just downloading them, playing them, being able to use them. Like, it's just getting a fucking headache. It's becoming a nuisance to just be able to play video games, to have access to video games, to be able to purchase them, to download them. It's just becoming increasingly harder for us. So I think that's my problem. And thank you for having me and listening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to chapter 91, the start of season 7 of The Last Thoughts of a Busy Mind. Lots to get through, not enough time. My drink today is some Coke Zero. Yes, it's Coke Zero. I just tasted it. Okay, so for this season, you may have noticed at the beginning it wasn't me who started talking about Ami Reza, and he talked about one of the aspects of living in Iran. There is a reason for that. This season, season 7, is one of the first, hopefully first and only themed seasons. The theme is, as chapter 90, the end of last season said, living under oppression. So it's Liu-O. And each episode, hopefully, will start with one of my friends who can talk about one aspect of the life of, well, living under oppression in Iran. Usually these episodes I start by talking about what happened throughout the hiatus, but that's why I named this one Life as It Was. Because life as it was, meaning before September 17th of 2022, is no longer viable. I've talked in length, sometimes a bit too much, about living in Iran. The last episode and the special episode, which I do recommend you go and listen to, I talked about what is going on. Well, for those of you who don't know, for the past month and a half, more than a month and a half, September 17th, since September 17th, there has been protests in Iran that have become we are literally in like revolution mode right now. Might lead to a complete regime change. Hopefully, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about it. But the reason for that is a girl by the name of Mahsa Amini has been murdered by Iranian morality police because of bad hijab. And since then, there has been more murders, kidnappings, assaults. Several of the already impoverished regions in Iran, mainly Sistan, Baluchistan, and Kurdistan, which is home to Baluch people and Kurd people, have had almost wartime experiences with people attacking them with literal shotguns and assault rifles. Government agents, by the way, not like a lunatic or a military fringe group. No, this is government-sanctioned violence against them, as well as numerous people who have been killed, children, almost 2-year-old children, 7-year-old children, 16-year-old children who have been sexually assaulted and raped and then killed. And honestly, just talking about it is already hard. I suggest just checking the news about them. People like Nika Karami and Saina Esmailzadeh, who were 16 years old and were murdered by brute force, or girls like Amit Abbasi, who we still don't know about the current situation of. We know she's been held in custody, but she was taken to a hospital and there were signs of violent sexual assault on her. She was 20 years old. Or high school kids, 15-year-old kids, who've been murdered because they didn't want to do a totalitarian theater, mainly singing a song in praise of the supreme leader of Iran, or tearing the picture of Khomeini, the guy who started the 19 not started, he was the leader of the 1979 revolution, whether we like it or not, because a lot of the other political figures went behind him to sort of get the revolution going. And there's a picture of him at the beginning of every textbook in Iran, and the girl tore it because it's a picture of a totalitarian dictator, and government agents, security forces, beat her to death. This is what's been happening since September 17th in Iran. So yeah, life as it was is not possible. So this season, until the foreseeable future, will be mainly focused on that. I will be trying to discuss different aspects of what is going on. And as I said, each episode will begin with a friend of mine talking about their experience of living in oppression. I want to talk about Amir's, by the way. He did say it's not important or anything. But I wanted to just imagine, because that's the goal of this, if you listen to this outside of Iran, I want you to listen to this and just imagine how much, or if you're in Iran, how much of the talents are in our lives that even a simple experience of playing a video game makes you a political figure, because you need to be deep down inside what is going on with the policies. God, I'm basically what I'm trying to say very poorly is that there is no way of living in Iran, living under oppression and don't feel aspects of it. Even if you're the most privileged people, you will feel the aspects of it. Here, even the simple act of playing a video game makes you need to learn about stuff that, to be honest, not a lot of kids need to know. You don't need to know about VPNs and different VPNs and how to work with different DNS settings, unless you are, a tech nerd and you care about this stuff or care about security and all of that. You can live a life not knowing this. That is not possible if you're in Iran. If you don't know your VPNs, which VPNs work, which servers work, what is your DNS settings, what protocols are you using, basically stuff that you would associate with a tech nerd, normal people need to know, because we don't have access to a good internet. There are disruptions. There are restrictions, like literally the fact that even for uploading this very episode that you're listening to, I have to use a VPN. I mean, right now it's gotten worse. Because as usual, when Iranian government feels threatened, the first thing they cut off is the internet, because stop the flow of information. They can easily monitor phone calls and text messages, but there are apps that might circumvent that, so they restrict internet speed and access to many sites. Like literally right now, you can't go on Instagram anymore or use WhatsApp anymore. Like these are the last two that weren't already restricted, because YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and a couple of other apps have been restricted since 2009, I think, and Telegram has been restricted since 2019. Oh no, 2017, I think. No, somewhere between that. I'm sorry. It's just that for so long, my interaction with internet is that I keep the VPN on, like all the time, like literally, because otherwise you don't have access to the internet. Like literally, they restricted access to Google services like Google Maps, because Google flagged Rubica, a government-sanctioned messaging app, as malware, which it is. So they sort of started restricting more stuff, and like literally only the search engine works. So even the fact that you listen to this means that I, a normal person, 25-year-old, not very tech savvy, Amir Reza, who you heard the voice of, can attest to that I am the least tech savvy person I probably know in my circle of friends, have to learn about all of these different protocols out of necessity, because otherwise I don't have access to the internet. I can't do anything. And so yeah, imagine that pressure for 25 years. and in many different aspects. This is the internet aspect. I mean, as I mentioned, gaming. Yeah, gaming is hard because we don't have access to original gaming. We don't have access to getting most of the games. So yeah, we either need to play cracked versions. God knows what sort of malwares are there. I'm not saying that it's really bad. Piracy is fun, and I do actually endorse piracy over giving money to a lot of companies, including Activision Blizzard, because I may mention Modern Warfare. But in general, yeah, you can't have access to games. You can't have access to movies. Like, that's the one where I'm more inclined, because you can't watch a movie in Iran unless it's 3 months later and there's a pirated version. So yeah, you can't live, basically. You can't live a normal life in Iran unless you are in line with everything that the Iranian government wants, that the Islamic Republic wants. And it's much smaller than you might think, and much more savage. For example, I mentioned all of the rapes that happened in Iran to women in custody, many of them asking their lawyers for abortion pills. You want to know the kicker to the whole story? That is not illegal. Unless IR, the Islamic Republic, is toppled, changed, and by changed I mean completely uprooted, not reformed, because it's unreformable. Unless that happens, those people, those security guards that sexually assaulted girls as young as 14 will never. By the way, the 14 number is documented. I'm sure it goes younger. Will never face any consequences. Will never face punishment, because that what they did is not illegal. There are no laws specifying that they can do it, but there is no law against it. And the Sharia law, the law, basically the law of the land, actively encourages it. It says women in custody, the enemy, the captured women, are fair game for sexual assault and rape. That is not a joke. You can look it up. I want you to think of that. That's how I'm gonna. This is this season. I know. Yeah, it's been more personal all the time, but it's no longer. It cannot happen like that anymore. What is happening in Iran is a revolution. It's a major fucking step, by the way, which I will go deeper, because I don't have much time, only 2 minutes left, into it in the next episodes. But the thing is that it is important, and I am hopeful. This time, a lot of good things have already happened. The fact that a lot of people are talking about it means that they failed at keeping it silent, and a lot of different tiny minute things have been publicly discussed in international stage is also important, as well as a lot of internal things, like a lot of walls and how do you say it, cultural shifts that have been massive. Again, listen to the special chapter. We talk more about that. I talk more about that with a friend of mine. But yeah, big stuff has happened. And so I want you, if you listen to this and if you're in Iran and you for any reason still feel, yeah, this might not go anywhere, I want you to just objectively look at it and realize what is happening. If you're outside of Iran, do follow the stories in Iran and do see what you can do. You can talk to your elected officials. I might actually do a whole episode on that, because again, I don't have a lot of time, because again, no matter what we do, this episode is unedited and unscripted at this show. So yeah, I will talk to you next week, hopefully, unless there is no way of me connecting to the internet. And in that case, just be our voice, please. I'll see you next week.